From the black silence of orbit, the planet appeared almost harmless, a fragile blue-green sphere, delicate in its rotation, bathed under twin suns whose golden light kissed oceans that glimmered like liquid crystal. Mountains rose with humble grandeur, rivers carved their slow paths, and sprawling forests whispered in winds no alien ears could hear. On first sight, the world seemed quaint, insignificant in the theater of galaxies, accustomed to supernovae and civilizations that bent planets to their will. We observed without urgency, cataloging what appeared to be primitive life. Nothing suggested danger. Yet there they were. Humans. Fragile, soft-bodied bipeds, unarmored, their forms fragile, almost laughable to a species accustomed to exoskeletal fortresses and energy shields. And yet, there was a rhythm to them, a confidence in the way they moved, an unspoken synchrony that drew our sensors to pause. They tilled lands with crude tools, building structures of modest size, moving in communities that thrummed with coordination we had never measured before. Each gesture, each interaction seemed mundane, yet something underlined it, something indefinable, almost electric, an assertion of presence, of will. They carried axes, knives, plows, tools that would barely scratch the armor of our war machines, but they wielded them as extensions of thought, extensions of intention. Our analysts predicted them fragile, predictable. Our calculations insisted their methods could be anticipated, contained, dismissed. Yet every day the humans demonstrated otherwise. Children learned without formal guidance. Adults adapted instinctively to circumstances that defied conventional logic. Even their mistakes revealed ingenuity, an instinctive understanding of leverage, timing, and improvisation. The planet's surface seemed calm, yet we felt it, a quiet tension, a pulse of stubbornness woven into every human action, a latent force we could not quantify. And so we watched. Hours stretched to days, days to weeks, and still the humans moved as if they owned the world. They were weak by every measure that mattered to us, yet their coordination, their confidence, resonated like an anomaly in the quiet void. Something ancient and persistent ran through them, a force neither weapon nor technology could measure. The orbiting fleet recorded all details, yet our data could not capture the essence.
Their laughable tools, their fragile bodies, their unarmored forms, none of it explained the aura they radiated. In the heart of this seemingly ordinary planet, we glimpsed the prelude to something extraordinary. The humans, unaware of our gaze, continued their work, their play, their simple, relentless lives. We sensed it before we understood it, a storm gathering quietly beneath unremarkable skies. Their confidence was not naive, it was a seed, and every instinct in our species whispered that what was planted here on this unassuming planet would one day grow beyond our comprehension. From orbit we observed, we catalogued, we waited. Yet even as we did, the first tremors of a force unlike any we had seen began to stir beneath the surface. A storm we could not yet predict, one that would challenge every law we believed immutable. And in that quiet observation, we felt the tiniest prickle of unease, the first inkling that humans were not what they seemed. We did not yet know the shape of their coming, only that the unassuming planet below held something ancient, resilient, and terrifyingly alive, something that, in time, would force even the most confident observer to pause, and perhaps to fear. The first ripples came through space like a whisper of doom. Sensors flared across the fleet, a ship, sleek and black, slicing through the void with lethal intent. It was him, the swordsman whose name alone had shattered empires, whose blade had carved across worlds and fleets like a force of nature. We had catalogued his conquests from afar, studied the patterns, calculated the inevitability of his victories. And yet, as he descended toward the unassuming planet, even our cold analytical systems registered a tremor of apprehension. From orbit, we watched as the ship breached the atmosphere, slicing through clouds in a flash of metallic menace. Below, the humans continued their mundane routines, unaware of the storm approaching their fragile world. They carried knives, axes, plows, tools that, to us, seemed laughably inadequate against a being who had shattered entire planetary defenses with a single sweep of his blade. Yet, they did not scatter. Not one fled. Not one screamed. There was no panic, only observation, calculation, preparation. The swordsman landed like a falling star, his presence a violent distortion of the atmosphere around him. Every movement radiated precision and lethal intent. Every breath was measured, every step a calculated strike.
From our vantage, we expected humans to falter, to collapse under the weight of such superior force. But we were wrong. They adapted instantly. One man ducked behind a cart, another vaulted over a low wall, turning the environment into a weapon. Trees became shields, debris became obstacles, rocks became projectiles. The aliens' data streams struggled to quantify the unpredictability. Each human action defied conventional probability, exploiting the swordsman's confidence, testing angles and openings that no algorithm could predict. We observed a dance unfold, one of death and survival, of instinct and improvisation. The swordsman struck again and again, a blur of steel and intent. Yet the humans endured. Blows that should have ended them met arms, torsos, even nothingness, as if the air itself favored the resilient. They staggered, yes, but they never broke. Every injury was temporary, every recovery swift, precise, purposeful. Our analyses, designed to model combat outcomes with near-perfect accuracy, failed. Emotional intelligence, raw, instinctive, adaptive, entered the equations. The humans read the swordsman's momentum, anticipated his rhythm, and then defied expectation entirely. Where one might have fled, they pressed forward. Where one might have cowered, they countered with audacity. From our observation decks, we felt awe and creeping fear. This was no longer a simple assessment of a species. This was a confrontation with something wholly unknowable, something that could not be contained by conventional metrics or predicted by centuries of experience. These fragile bipeds, armed with knives, axes, and a courage that shimmered like fire against the cold steel of the universe, endured. And as the first human countered with a move so fluid, so unexpected, that even the swordsman's blade faltered, we realized the truth. We were witnessing not just survival, but evolution in motion. A species that, in its simplicity, possessed a resilience no weapon, no strategy could fully comprehend. The human's eyes met the swordsman's, not with fear, but with focus, audacity, and the unspoken understanding that they would not yield. From orbit, we recorded every strike, every pivot, every daring act of improvisation. Yet even as the alien fleets cataloged the chaos below, a singular thought rippled through our sensors, unquantifiable and unnerving. The humans were not what they seemed. The battle had begun, and already the outcome was uncertain. The battlefield, once dominated by the cold, precise rhythm of the swordsman's blade, began to shift in ways our calculations could not anticipate. From our vantage in orbit, we observed the humans adapting in real time, their minds moving faster than the sensors could track. Conventional defenses, the walls, the barricades, the crude formations we had cataloged, crumbled under the swordsman's relentless strikes, and yet the humans did not yield. Then it happened. One human, small even by his species' standards, darted into a ruined dwelling. In the debris-strewn kitchen, his eyes scanned the room and rested on an object that, to our analytical minds, was trivial, a kitchen knife. Mere centimeters of sharpened metal, intended for slicing fruit or meat, utterly insignificant in any conventional sense, and yet the human seized it. Instantly, instinct and intellect fused. Every motion was precise, fluid, unpredictable. The knife became an extension of his will, a conduit through which ingenuity flowed like electricity. The swordsman advanced, his strikes intended to overwhelm, but the human pivoted, dodged, and countered with a grace that defied expectation. Each feint, each swipe, exploited overconfidence and timing. To the alien observers, it was impossible. How could a being so small, armed with an object so inadequate, withstand the precision of a warrior who had ended legions with a single stroke? And yet he did, not through brute force, but through creativity, adaptability, and relentless calculation. Around him, the humans began to improvise on a grand scale. A fallen chair became a shield, a broken pipe a lever, stones became projectiles, each hurled with an understanding of trajectory that seemed almost preternatural. Their entire environment was weaponized, every obstacle a potential advantage. We watched as ordinary homes and streets became instruments of survival, reshaped by minds that refused limitation. Fear began to ripple through our fleet, not fear of physical harm, but fear of unpredictability. Centuries of training, millennia of tactical doctrine, advanced weaponry, all irrelevant in the face of ingenuity unbound by convention. The humans did not simply respond, they anticipated,
improvised, and created solutions we could not compute. The battlefield itself became a proving ground, a laboratory for a species that thrived under pressure, that converted scarcity into opportunity, weakness into strength.
Even the Swordsman, the apex predator of the galaxy, began to falter. He parried, dodged, and attacked, yet each human counter seemed to anticipate the next, fluidly, almost instinctively. Their creativity was relentless, an evolving strategy that adapted faster than any of our algorithms could predict. And from our observation decks, we realized with dawning horror, the humans had invented a new dimension of combat, one that transcended strength, speed, and skill, and relied instead on imagination, resourcefulness, and audacious improvisation. The humans' eyes glimmered with focus, the smallest movements precise yet chaotic in a way that confounded even the most advanced simulations. Ordinary objects became extensions of thought, of intent, of survival. Every kick, every twist, every improvised block was a proof that power alone was meaningless when faced with adaptability and creativity unchained. And as the humans pressed forward, the swordsman's confidence, once absolute, began to waver. The alien observers recorded, calculated, and failed to comprehend. This was no longer a duel of strength. It was a war of wits, a battle of unpredictability, and the humans had rewritten the rules in real time. From orbit, we realized a chilling truth. Raw power and centuries of experience were insufficient against a mind capable of turning the mundane into the lethal. And as the first human lunged, knife in hand, exploiting an opening so unexpected that even the swordsman faltered, the alien narrators understood, too late, that humanity's genius was not just survival, it was invention in motion, and nothing in the galaxy had ever moved like this before. The battlefield had become a crucible, and the humans, armed with nothing more than instinct and ordinary tools, were beginning to redefine what it meant to be unstoppable. The battlefield had transformed into a theater of chaos. Smoke curled from overturned carts, splintered wood littered the ground, and dust hung heavy in the air like a living entity. The humans were cornered, bloodied, their bodies marked by strikes that would have felled any ordinary creature. And yet they did not retreat. Instead, they advanced. Each step was deliberate, measured, yet imbued with a wild audacity that defied logic. From our vantage in orbit, we observed in disbelief. Where strategy demanded fear, they displayed none. Where instinct demanded preservation, they pressed forward. The humans had become a singular organism, their movements instinctively coordinated, yet individually unpredictable. They exploited every contour of the terrain, walls, debris, doorframes, anything that could obscure, redirect, or destabilize. What our sensors initially cataloged as randomness revealed itself to be pattern, an improvisational algorithm executed in real time, adaptive, lethal, and incomprehensible. The swordsman's strikes, once unstoppable, met with unexpected counters. A human ducked beneath a swing, rolling through the dust, and in a single fluid motion sent a plank of wood into the path of the blade. Another feinted to the left, drawing the swordsman's attention, while a third hurled debris that tripped him mid-stride. Every near-death encounter sharpened them. Every misstep became an instant lesson, encoded in reflexes that were terrifying in their efficiency. From our observation decks, the transformation was undeniable. Fearlessness radiated from the humans, but not the naive ignorance of the weak. This was courage forged in adversity, a deliberate choice to confront annihilation head-on. We, beings of logic and calculation, felt an emotional stir we were unaccustomed to, awe, disbelief, and a creeping dread. The humans were no longer simply surviving, they were dominating the encounter. Each calculated risk, each daring maneuver became a weapon. Despair itself was converted into strategy. Unpredictability became the guiding principle of combat. Instinct meshed with precision, and what had once been defensive improvisation blossomed into aggressive orchestration. The swordsman's strikes, powerful and elegant, were repelled, redirected, or exploited. His confidence faltered as the humans demonstrated mastery of chaos. We could not tear our gaze away. What had been intended as a demonstration of superiority was unraveling before our eyes. The humans' raw willpower, their ability to convert pressure into opportunity, had created a scenario that defied every expectation. The battlefield itself seemed to bend to their determination, responding to their actions as if acknowledging their dominance. And in that moment, the unthinkable became clear. The humans had seized control of the encounter.
Their audacity, resilience, and intelligence had become a force of their own, capable of challenging the apex predator of the galaxy.
Even as we recorded, calculated, and attempted to model the outcomes, the truth burned through our analysis like a star. This was no longer combat, it was evolution in motion, and the humans, bloodied and battered yet unbroken, pressed forward toward a reckoning that would redefine the limits of survival itself. The air trembled with the collision of steel and instinct. Dust swirled like storm clouds, kicked up by the relentless movements of humans and the swordsmen alike. The battlefield had become a chaotic symphony. Shattered wood, upturned carts, and fragments of homes littered the ground. Every strike, every counter, every step reverberated across the planet's surface, a testament to both destruction and ingenuity. From orbit, we watched as the humans converged, battered yet unbowed. One figure, smaller than the swordsman's blade itself, stood at the center, gripping a kitchen knife, a mere sliver of metal sharpened not for war, but for mundane tasks. And yet, in his hands, it became something far greater, an extension of will, of instinct, of the relentless desire to survive. The swordsman advanced, his strikes lethal in their elegance, designed to overwhelm, to terminate with absolute precision. But the human moved with fluidity that defied calculation, each pivot and step exploiting the smallest openings in timing and environment. Tables, chairs, and debris were leveraged with instinctive creativity, transforming ordinary objects into barriers, weapons, and tactical instruments. Every attack the swordsman launched was met with a counter so unexpected it staggered even the most seasoned alien observers. We recorded, transfixed, as the human's improvisation turned the battlefield into a proving ground. The swordsman faltered repeatedly, his centuries of experience rendered insufficient against the unpredictable cadence of thought and action. Each feint, each flick of the knife, exploited overconfidence, hesitation, and the blind spots of a mind conditioned for conventional combat. The humans did not merely survive, they dominated. They moved in perfect adaptive harmony, converting weakness into strength, scarcity into advantage, fear into a weapon. Every discarded plank, every overturned cart, every improvised strike, testament to a species whose ingenuity could not be quantified. Our sensors, designed to anticipate and model outcomes, failed. No algorithm, no simulation, could account for the raw instinctive intelligence that guided them.
The swordsman, apex predator of the galaxy, faltered once more. His blades struck air. His movements were anticipated, redirected, and neutralized by beings whose resilience exceeded any measure we had known. And then, with a final audacious maneuver, the human struck, precise, fluid, unrelenting, and the swordsman fell. From orbit, the alien observers could only record the impossible, a species of fragile bipeds, armed with nothing more than instinct, audacity, and ordinary tools, had executed a decisive victory. The battlefield lay in ruin, littered with the remnants of tools, improvised weapons, and shattered pride. Every motion, every tactic, every small act of creativity had coalesced into triumphs. We understood, in that instant, the terrifying truth. Power alone is meaningless when confronted with adaptability, courage, and the unpredictable ingenuity of humans. A storm had passed, leaving behind a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. Humanity had proven once again that simplicity, resilience, and creativity could overcome even the greatest force in existence. And as silence settled briefly over the battlefield, we realized that this was not the end. It was a beginning. A species had claimed its indelible mark, and the cosmos would never regard them in the same way again. Years passed, and the echoes of that singular battle lingered across star systems. From the cold observation decks of countless alien civilizations, the memory of humans persisted, not as a curiosity, not as a species to be cataloged, but as a cautionary legend. The battlefields, the chaos, the audacity of those fragile bipeds had left an imprint deeper than any weapon, any technological marvel could achieve. We, the observers, often returned to the data, scanning, recalibrating, analyzing. Yet no matter how precise our instruments, no simulation could capture the essence of what had occurred. A human, armed with nothing more than a kitchen knife and instinct, had overturned expectations that spanned centuries. They had turned weakness into strength, improvisation into art, and fear into an engine of triumph.
Across our fleets, a quiet reverence mingled with a lingering unease. Stories of that encounter became proverbs in galactic councils, cautionary tales whispered in strategic briefings, moral lessons etched into the doctrine of war. Never underestimate humans. Small, fragile, ordinary, yet unstoppable when cornered.
Planets fell in line with the memory of that day, aware that the measure of a species was not technology, not fleets, not blades, but the indomitable spirit that wielded them. We observed the younger generations of humans with a mixture of awe and dread. Even in seeming peace, they displayed resilience, creativity, and unity that defied conventional understanding. Every obstacle was approached as an opportunity, every challenge a test of resourcefulness. We began to comprehend that this was the defining trait of their species, a capacity to convert limitation into advantage, fear into motivation, and ordinary tools into instruments of extraordinary power. And as the galaxies turned, it became clear. Humanity was no longer simply part of the cosmic tapestry. They had become a benchmark, a standard by which all species would be measured. Any who ignored, underestimated, or dismissed them would do so at their peril. The kitchen knife, once an object of simplicity, became emblematic of the impossible, a symbol of how ingenuity, willpower, and courage could defy expectation. From our observation decks, we whispered warnings to one another, acknowledging the truth we could not ignore. Humans were fragile, yet fearless, ordinary, yet extraordinary. And the lesson of that day, etched into the collective memory of the stars, resonated across the void. Underestimate them at your peril. The galaxy had witnessed something rare, not just a battle, but a revelation. Humanity's essence had been revealed, not through conquest nor domination, but through the quiet, relentless, and astonishing act of survival elevated into brilliance. And in that understanding, we felt both awe and fear, a combination alien to our species, but inescapably real. Across the vast expanse of the galaxy, a quiet reverberation persisted, a truth etched not in stone, nor in code, but in the memory of every observer who had witnessed it. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were resilient. Humans were terrifyingly clever. The events on that unassuming planet had become legend, spreading from system to system, whispered in council chambers, analyzed in strategy rooms, and recounted wherever beings sought to understand the unpredictable chaos that was humanity. Even centuries later, the memory of the humans' confrontation with the Swordsman refused to fade. The tiny figures, armed with knives, plows, and instinct, had defied an apex predator of the galaxy in ways no algorithm could predict. We, the alien observers, recorded every detail as if the act itself were a revelation, a lesson in adaptability, audacity, and raw ingenuity. The galaxy seemed to pause in recognition, as if the universe itself acknowledged that the humans had altered its calculations, its expectations, its sense of certainty. From the debris-strewn battlefield to the quiet streets of their homes, humans had demonstrated a principle that defied conventional logic. Ordinary tools, combined with extraordinary will, could shape the fate of encounters previously deemed impossible. Every object became a weapon, every movement a lesson, every failure a stepping stone to a new strategy. Observers across star systems marveled, noting the simultaneous elegance and brutality of their improvisation. They were fragile yet unstoppable, unarmored yet invincible in spirit. And so the proverb spread, "You can ignore humans, you can underestimate humans." It became more than a warning. It became a mantra, a universal truth, a metric by which every civilization measured risk. Humanity's essence, we realized, was not merely survival. It was the capacity to inspire awe and fear simultaneously, to challenge assumptions, to overturn expectations, to redefine strength itself. We recounted the cinematic images in our records, a single human, diminutive yet unyielding, standing against a towering foe. A kitchen knife flashed in sunlight as debris flew, every motion precise, every decision fluid. The swordsman faltered again and again, undone not by power, but by unpredictability, creativity, and courage. Across the stars, every observer noted the extraordinary. The smallest species could become the greatest force, not through dominance, but through will, ingenuity, and relentless determination. Legends multiplied. Stories of humans improvising, coordinating instinctively, and enduring the impossible became part of galactic consciousness. Generations of humans, we realized, inherited not just survival instincts, but a legacy of cunning, resilience, and unity that ensured the species would always endure, always adapt, always surprise. Even those who had never seen a human in person recognized the pattern. They were small yet audacious, ordinary yet extraordinary, fragile yet unbreakable.
In every recorded encounter, in every whispered tale, in every analysis of combat and strategy, the humans left the same mark. The impossible could be made inevitable, the improbable could become reality, and the underestimated could overturn the most absolute of threats. As the galaxy reflected, one truth crystallized above all: humanity had become more than a species. They were a concept, a force, a warning. Their victories, born from ingenuity, instinct, and unyielding will, ensured that no observer, no civilization could ever approach them with complacency. And so the final line of their legend spread, inscribed not in archives alone, but in the consciousness of the universe itself. You can ignore humans, you can underestimate humans, but never kill just one. In that truth, every observer felt the weight of understanding. A small, fragile species had transcended expectation, redefining power, resilience, and the very notion of survival. Humanity was no longer simply alive. They were a force, a testament to the extraordinary potential of sheer will, and a story the galaxy would never forget.